Ladies and gentlemen, good evening out there. It is your host, Anthony Likes, and I am once again with Rodre Davis and Raphael Rhodes, and we're bringing you another episode of Let Me Say This. And Rodre Davis has something that he wants to get off his chest today in regards to a particular game that happened the previous night between an MVP candidate. So go ahead and get it off.
Man, first of all, let me just say this before I get into last night's events and the tragedy thereafter. I want to start off by shouting out the man himself, arguably one of the greatest basketball players of all time, NBA 75 anniversary team member, 10-time All-Star, multi-time All-Teamer, the NCAA tournament most outstanding player, a former NCAA champion, one of the greatest players to ever put on a Knicks jersey, and was blessed with the honor to grace the Naismith Hall of Fame, Carmelo Anthony.
I will say well-deserved.
Original 15, the original 15.
Deserved, man.
Congrats to you, Carmelo, from the LMST team, Carmelo.
Absolutely.
Well deserved.
Yeah. And I did kind of worry because there's a ceiling and a floor when it goes back to 2003. Obviously the ceiling was LeBron. The middle was supposed to be Carmelo, and the next person thereafter, other than Darko, should have been Dwayne Wade. That was the floor and the ceiling. The floor and the ceiling in the middle all changed, except for the ceiling was the only person that didn't change. He's still going. I did worry because Melo didn't have the accolades that got D Wade into the Hall of Fame years earlier, that Carmelo wouldn't be given a fair shake. Like I said, he's one of the greatest scorers of all time, a transformer player, like Raphael said. I think he deserves it. I think we all think he deserves it. These last 20 years wouldn't be the same without him.
I don't argue that because he was even great when he was in college. And you saw the greatness when he was playing for Syracuse, and you saw the talent that was there. And what he struggled with, and what would probably be the knock, would be they didn't have a supporting cast around him. They didn't give him any of the help that he really needed to really excel and reach that peak. And then he's at the end of his career, he started getting plagued with injuries, which hurt. And but you take that all out of it, and you think about what he did for the game and the way he represented not just his teams but the league itself. Stand-up guy, deserves to be in the Hall of Fame in the NBA. I'm happy he's in the Naismith Hall of Fame. And congratulations to Carmelo Anthony. I think he's a fantastic player and a fantastic ambassador for the sport of basketball.
And my only point, every time I'd talk to this offline with Dre, can you just imagine if the Pistons taking him instead of Darko, what they could have been moving forward?
Wow, what they
it might NBA landscape. It might be some people that might have not have that many rings. If and it's crazy, they won a championship, making the wrong pick, still win the championship, still was making it to the finals, still making it to conference finals, but they peaked out after what? After 08. That's when they didn't want to pay Ben Wallace. So
Carmelo went to the Nuggets. He didn't get any help there. When Carmelo went to the Knicks, they didn't want to get him any help because they were dreadful, and they thought he was going to be the one player on their back, and they couldn't do anything about it. So, but I agree with Dre on that one. Congratulations, Carmelo Anthony. Well deserved, and I think he's a future NBA Hall of Famer in my eyes.
On from the former 15 for the Nuggets into the current 15, we're going to talk about.
I didn't come today to talk about that 15. I came to talk about another 15. Let's talk about last night.
10 and 10, 61, 10 and 10.
Triple-double, masterpiece, played with 5 fouls from the fourth quarter through the rest of double overtime. One of the greatest games I've ever seen from an individual player all at one time.
Yes.
So,
and I'm going to continue to make the case for him. I got you, Joker. My MVP. Yeah. No knock on you, SGA, but you just happen to be the guy that's in front of the guy.
It's really hard. To me, it's still a really hard race, and that's what I think. But I can't deny how great Joker is.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just great. But he's not just not. He's physical. He dominates inside. He can shoot, but on top of that, he plays smart. He knows how to play. He knows when to foul. He's got a basketball IQ that is off the charts, and you can't deny his ability on that. SGA is really, really good, and I think he's very promising. And I honestly think he's still a very high contender for the MVP.
Yes.
However, you just can't take away the abilities of Nikola. You just can't do it.
Yeah, really, Joker's really gonna have the two agendas pushed against him this time. Is the voter fatigue and then SGA is the best player on the best team with the better record. So it's usually one that happens, but I've never seen the case where it's been like two happening going against this player because it's just like what are we to do here?
And then you got to kind of put, if that's the way it goes, then you got to kind of put the asterisk next to SGA. Yeah. Because it's like you got voted in not because you were better. You got voted in because people got tired of seeing Joker.
Yeah, that. And then you fell into that one criteria, which leads me to another point. Because this is never, I looked it up, I double checked, triple checked in the almost 80-year history now of the NBA. This has never been done. It's been done in the NFL twice. It's been done in the MLB once. We had it in the NFL. We had it in 97 with not Deion Sanders, Barry Sanders and Brett Favre. In 2003 with Peyton and Steve McNair. What I'm getting to is co-MVPs. Could we possibly be running into a situation to where you could have the first co-MVPs in the NBA in the almost 80-year history? I don't know how the voting works. I don't know how many first place votes you need to be the MVP, but could we be running into a situation to where, you know what, both guys are deserving, hand both guys the trophy, and then everybody goes home happy? Or we're just gonna we're gonna get on, we're gonna get on our show and be like, why this person should have won it versus why this person shouldn't have won it, something like that. Are we gonna?
I'll start off on this one. I think it is entirely dependent. We can't tell how the voters are going to vote. We don't know. Is it possible? Sure, possible. Is it plausible or probable? I don't think so. Because if the voters sit there and look at the stats, then Joker's clearly the runaway. Clearly. I mean, like, if you look at how good what he means to the Denver Nuggets, it's a runaway. And I'm not taking anything away from SGA and what he means to the Thunder. I'm just talking about what Joker means to the Nuggets. Because the Thunder does have some supporting cast that picks it up when they need to. The Nuggets, they're leaning on Joker.
Yeah, they don't have all the all-star on their roster. Jamal Murray's a great player. He turns up in the playoffs, but he's never been an all-star. MPJ, another guy, he can turn it up, but never been an all-star.
But so if you're looking at how voters vote, if they're voting along those lines, which you should look at the statistics and really weigh on it. Is he the most valuable player of the league? Then you should see just a single winner, and it should be Joker. But SGA is just making a strong point. He's got 7 games left, and it's always about how you finish too. So, is it possible? Then yeah, but yeah, it's possible.
I just don't see in a sport or in anything historical where you start to get to monumental numbers and said history, as you alluded to, Anthony. 80 years, no co-MVPs. A couple co-All-Star MVPs. Okay,
Co-rookies
that's
of the year. We even had that. Probably had that plenty of time.
Do I think in a transformative league that is very progressive, that is okay with a commissioner that believes in seeing the future and believes in pushing the game forward? Do I think in 80 years of history they start doing a co-MVP now? Absolutely not. I don't see them breaking that traditional history. I think that would be the same to me. I kind of understand co-MVPs in football a little bit better. Two quarterbacks can have the exact same season. How do you not say that these two quarterbacks that had identical seasons aren't co-MVPs? In the Heisman race, this is what I'm alluding to. In a Heisman race, you won't see two Heismans. The NFL, the greatest league of all time, having co-MVPs again. I only see that because from a statistical standpoint, it is very, very, very possible to see two quarterbacks have similar seasons. But what I don't see is somebody like the collegiate level doing something like it. I don't see the NBA, even with all this, even with the numbers, even watching games every night with these two players, that they're designed or destined to want to have to give a guy that's going to have what, maybe possibly a third MVP, and you want to say that you gave it, you basically gift wrapped it to him because you made him a Cohen. And so the same asterisk at that point, the same asterisk that we're going to give SGA for just winning the MVP outright, if they share this now, there's a double asterisk, almost as if it never even happened.
And to your point, the NFL doesn't even do co-MVPs anymore, and they won't do it. Instead, they created another
Right.
position for it
Offensive
called
player of the year.
Offensive Player of the Year,
Yeah.
or
They'll
Defensive
create
Player
a,
of the
they'll
Year.
create a,
Defensive MVP.
they'll create another category before they give themselves the opportunity to say, "Hey, we are kind of like
To create a
screwed
bigger
in critical
controversy.
thinking."
Yeah,
They
to
have
create
a
a bigger
Kia. They
controversy.
have a Kia Clutch Player of the Year now, and I don't even know what that award does, how they rate it, grade it, or judge it. I just know now that there's another category that somebody out there can win an award from. So, although we in this group feel like SGA is front runner, the odds I just saw a few minutes ago are for him to win MVP still. Joker is still a very big underdog. It's still not close. There's not even a lot of Vegas odds that say right now that the Joker is the MVP. So I just don't see with everything that we have right in front of us. And like you said, the most important part that matters with MVP is the best player on the best team with the best record. And if
I got a question for the two of you guys, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Gray, but I got a question for the two of you guys. This was a debate when the NFL MVP race was coming out, and I wanted to ask this to you guys. Do you feel that it's because Joker's not necessarily getting a lot of the publicity that SGA is because of the market that he's in? Because SGA is in a really, really
if you
small
put it that
market.
way, I mean, if you
And
put
it's a
it that,
popularity
if you put it that,
contest.
I'm about to say that kind of both. If you look at Denver, OKC compared to LA, New York, they kind of both in some small markets. So, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, much smaller. Yeah.
Which, when he
I
does
don't-
great
Just my
things,
mic.
projects it to a higher level.
I honestly, in this particular race, don't feel like popularity or market. I don't feel like any of that is influencing this MVP race. I think this MVP was decided months ago, and all he had to do was stay healthy and do the same thing that he was doing.
That's it. Just
Whether
finish.
you call him a free throw merchant or not, whether he gets 6, 8, 12, 16, or 2 free throws, he knows now that he is in a realm, and I watched it last night with the Joker. He's in a realm where certain fouls don't get called. Fouls get called for him that push his game along, push his stats. And what that does is it opens up the defense even more to just stand there and do this, which is what you see a lot of people do in front of SGA. And SGA has pretty much free will to go be an offensive player.
Yeah.
Now, one more thing I hate too, my bad, is just like it's kind of given to that point where the guy that's never won the MVP before, then the media they build him up, and then one shortcoming, like if they fail to make it to the conference final, you know how that goes. MVP fails to make it past the second round, so it's just ready to build him up to kind of tear him down ordeal. So he gotta. I feel like he has, out of the two, he has the more pressure. Like Jokic, obviously he's been there, done it already, and it doesn't matter. He got the hardware, so it's just like as far as the pressure, it's gonna be more pressure on SGA to deliver, at least be the one that wins the West and make it to the finals, and then we go from there. Whatever happens, we'll go from there. Because I still think Boston is probably a repeat. But we haven't had a repeat champion in a while. But we'll get to that next. But let's stick to the MVP. Let's stick to the MVP aspect of it. There's more pressure on SGA compared to Joker.
According to ESPN, they had their MVP final straw poll by 100 league insiders that made their final votes, and right now SGA is the equivalent winner, claiming 77 of the first 100 the Oh, the 100%.
landslide.
Okay.
And they can't even tell you why. And this is again is why I allude to none of this matters. I looked at the same stats and everything that you looked at. In the month of March, Joker averaged 30 points. In the month of March, SGA averaged 35 points. I did a breakdown of the last five. In the last 5 games, SGA's, and I don't want to talk about points because both of these guys, as I just said, put up 30 a game. There's no point in pointing out certain numbers with scoring because we know who does what. I want to talk about facilitation. I want to talk about why I'm saying that the best player on the best team is still wearing number 15 in Denver is because in the last 5 games, his assist numbers read as 10, 6, 10, 9, 5. SGA's last 5 assist games, 0, donut, goose egg, 0, 7, 3, 5, and 3. So I go back to the point that I just made is that this MVP was decided 4 months ago.
Yeah.
And we saw them decide the MVP for us. We saw them tell us who the MVP was. And the season continued to build, and the Joker had a better season.
And it was like Jokic, because Jokic came out here and did the thing that hasn't been done since the 2015 game. He kind of did it again, and he just had what he just had last night. It's like, hold on. SJ might be the winner, but Joker is on his tail, so yeah.
But is the emphasis on scoring then? Because you don't, like, there's people that are looking at the scoring because they want the NBA to be an offensive league, right? They just like any sport is turning into an offensive league.
Yeah.
Lacking focus on the defense, right?
And did Steve Nash win it? He didn't even average 20 when he won it, but I know he averaged a double. He averaged like 19 and 12 assists. I know when Kobe should have won it, but that's a different discussion for a different day. But
right, but now assists and rebounds and stuff like that are kind of getting like sidelined, and they're focusing more on the scoring. Who's the and it's as simple as this: your average scoring winner for the season, SGA. All around MVP, most valuable player, all around assist, rebounds.
Yeah, points response.
You know what I'm saying?
All the advanced analytics will go to Joker, the PER, the value above replacement, the win shares, offensive or defenses, probably the box plus minus. Probably Joker has a better box plus minus because he's not going against another bid that can go toe to toe with him versus SGA, who's going against better guard. Well, I wouldn't say better guards, but guards that can also score.
Wing defenders, stuff like that.
So
who's getting to the foul line more? Who's driving the ball more? Who has more inside scoring? Who, because it's harder to score 60 points when you're not shooting threes as much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to take 30 shots. You got to make 30 shots a game if you're shooting twos.
Yeah. And so I want to transition because I feel like this brings up an excellent point. And I noticed something else last night, which is why I want to transition and make this excellent point at the same time. How do you guys feel that an MVP race, an MVP type season at this point for both of them and the other fellow members that aren't being talked about, how do you feel like that plays into getting ready to go into the playoffs? Almost every member of the MVP race is about to get ready to go into the playoffs. In that game that I watched last night, I also saw a young man that went for 13 points in the fourth quarter, had an amazing overtime session in which he got doubled. In the first and second overtime, made some excellent passes, helped his team win overall still in Anthony Edwards. As we look at the matchups in the West and the East, in some of these potential MVP candidates, Jason Tatum, Anthony Edwards,
Donovan
Joker,
Mitchell.
SGA, Donovan Mitchell, how do you feel like their game with their matchups that we're about to see as they stand today, and I can read them out if need be, as they stand today, if SGA and the Thunder had to go in a 7-game series with the Clippers, what do you think truly should and would happen?
I just think I know OKC's a younger, more complete team. Honestly, in that regard, I think OKC takes that series in 6. I know James Harden, him and Kawhi have a games where they turn the clock back, but I still think they just don't have enough to compete with a more complete roster. Like OKC, they're younger, they're more athletic, they're healthier, they got more scoring options. So they have as far as a big man that can space the floor a little bit, so he won't be in the way. And then so you got all that to determine, and then the defense. Clippers got they always have a good defense, but I think Thunder's is one of the upper echelon of teams when it comes to the defense. So yeah, so it's interesting. That West Coast log jam, like seeded 2 through 7 or 8, a 3 to 4 game difference every time. We go through this every year with the West. So it's never been a situation where it's just, unless you just got like, say you on the Warriors arc where you just got the best record where you like 10 games ahead, but everything else is just like, hey man, you can't slip. Like the Lakers was second. They went on that little losing streak. Now they fifth. Now they back fourth. So it's just like, yeah, it is all about matchups in the playoffs though.
So to Anthony's point, I think if you're asking Dre, if you're asking what I think you're asking how the MVP race plays on the individual player and how that would turn out. And I think that all just depends on the player. I mean, the two front runners with SGA and Joker. I mean, Joker is just a dog. He's. I don't think it'll phase him if he wins or loses the MVP.
Yeah.
I think honestly, I think him finishing in second will put a chip on his shoulder to show.
Yeah.
And that makes the Nuggets a very dangerous.
Kind of the year they won his ship.
Yeah.
He didn't get the MVP, but they got the ship. So it's just like it's one of those.
And then on the flip side, for SGA, he's a young player who this is going to be his first MVP. He could win it and then sit there and go, but I'm the MVP.
Yeah.
I just won an individual award. Now, I'm not saying he will do that. I don't think he will do that. I think he's very much about the team. However, when it gets young and you start winning those individual accolades, it's very easy to fall into the trap. And I'm not saying he's going to. I'm just saying it's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible. Yeah. Yeah. So
I mean,
overall in that matchup, I was about to say overall in that matchup, what do you got? Who you got winning, and and how many games?
in that matchup between the Nuggets and the Clippers?
Yes.
The one that you
Thunder
vote?
Clippers. Thunder's Clippers.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The Thunder and the Clippers. Between those two, I think the Thunder takes it, and I think they take it. Anthony said it in 6. I think they take it in 5.
I'm
I think they
gonna
take it.
I'm gonna have to agree with you.
I mean,
I think I got it may not be a sweep, but I do think in that particular matchup it's gonna be Thunder in 5. So the next one that I got is the Rockets and the Timberwolves, which I feel like is a surprise matchup a little bit. Like I said, another MVP candidate in Anthony Edwards, a very young, hot team right now in the Rockets with a great coach. They were kind of blessed into a bad situation with a good situation because he was cast out and now he's cast back in. And look at what he's done with a young team in a matter of.
Put defense in their brain. That's a good coach because you gotta get young guys to play defense. And with and I bring up youth. I think even though they're 2 seed, that youth will really in the playoff series. You got Minnesota who've been to the Western Conference Finals, so who knows? They don't have that significant piece like they had. They don't. It's really not the same team. They don't have Cat, but you still got AE. He's got enough games. It's just so I think even though them being seeded seventh, it really don't even matter because like look at the records when it comes to the seeding. So it's not far off. So I think just having that home court, for a young Rockets team, maybe it goes to a 7th game, them having home court could play a factor. But I still think actually the Timberwolves would take that series.
Yeah, I think the Rockets are playing really well. However, they do have some cracks in their foundation there, and I think that if the Timberwolves can sit there and exploit those, yeah, you're looking at that series can go to 7. I think that series
also depending on what version of Julius Randle is going to be there, because that can be the make or break for the Timberwolves. Because everybody else like a Nas Reed and Alexander Walker and what's the other guy's name? Jaden McDaniels. They gonna show up.
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards is he's a baller.
Yeah, he is. He's an absolute killer. Yeah. So I think I have to agree on that one. I personally think if it ended today and that was the matchup, I got Timberwolves in 7. It's going to be a 7-game series, and we'll talk about, as we continue to go and we get into round by round, what that would mean for teams later on into the playoffs. I still think overall it would be a short playoff run for the Timberwolves, but as far as the first series, I would give it to them in 7 based on youth, based on experience, based on adjustments, based on having an overall superstar in Anthony Edwards.
But I will
And
say,
we, hold on, Anthony, if you don't mind. I don't want to.
go ahead.
I just want to say one thing.
Go ahead.
We have to go. We just have to put the disclaimer. That's if the season ended today.
If it ain't
There's still 7 games left. We still have some time, and there's some seeding that plays in those 7 games to find out who's going to be in the play-in. You know what I'm saying? And the play-in tournament, and who's going to play in to get into the playoffs.
Yeah,
So
one other thing. Yeah, I'm discount. Yeah, I forget because I'm not going to discount Ime Udoka's coaching. So I wouldn't be like if they lose in the first round. I know why because this is a young team. But if they make it far, then I also know why. They have a coach that's been to a finals. So and
you can't coach mindset. Like you can put mindset into somebody, but you can't coach mindset. And they have a good mindset.
Speaking of coaches, the Memphis Grizzlies just recently fired their head coach. At one point, it was like 9 games left, something that you've never seen before, unless your team is basically headed for the lottery. But there's been rumblings, Ja Morant didn't like how the offense was going, his usage rates just dropped. So I just want to know what direction you think those guys are headed to, because I want to say they're sitting at that number. They're 5th seed. They're 5th seed. They're 5th seed right now. Yeah.
If it ended today, they would have to play the Nuggets.
Nuggets in
5.
Yeah.
Nuggets in 5.
I think y'all being a little nice. I think y'all being a little nice. I'll just go ahead and put a broom out. Honestly,
yeah.
The way they season going, I'll put a broom out. I get what y'all doing. You might, they might sneak one in, but
and the reason
so hard to say is sweep.
And to tie in, you can't do that. Not in that span of time. And to turn more importantly, your question into this matchup question. The Grizzlies are obviously very likely, and in my opinion, headed for a first round exit. Still will be looking for a coach in the offseason. I don't think that, and just respectfully speaking, that I think they're going to explore their options, whether they keep the coach that's out there now or not. I think, as sad as it is, in a few short years, it's time for the Grizzlies to start exploring their options.
I was just about to ask that. Do you think they consider that right now? I was just about to get. You think it ain't gonna be as big as Luka, obviously, but it's still on that. It's that next level below if they decided to pull that trigger.
In a span of a few short years, with the Grizzlies, your star player lost essentially a year with his stardom, his hot streak, his on the court aura, his off the court aura. Ja Morant has essentially just about been blackballed. You really don't see him very much on TV. He didn't make the All-Star game this year. What did he do this year?
They win more games without him than with him.
What did he do this year to make himself memorable again?
I'll add on to this discussion on this with this way. Congratulations to the Grizzlies. You are now turning into the NBA's version of the Cleveland Browns, and you're making some really bad moves for the sake of a star player when the star player is complaining about his production and how he's playing, and you're blaming it on the coach, but the team is winning. The coach gets the team to win. The player is involved in the production. This isn't the NFL. This isn't
the NBA is star driven. NBA is more star driven compared to NFL.
The NBA is more of a team with individual aspects driven league. So the individual aspects can drive the team to a higher level more than in the NFL. In the NFL, that only happens when you have a quarterback that is at that level, or a star wide receiver, or a running back. But for the NFL to win, you have to have an offensive line and a good defense. For the NBA, LeBron could beat a team on his own.
Completely on his own.
You know what I'm saying?
Completely on his own.
Right? So how much of it is on John Morant? And we don't know the behind the scenes on it. Is John Morant taking practice seriously? And I get it. I'm not trying to go the Allen Iverson route of practice, but is he going to develop? Is he trying to develop his game to be the best? Or was he so complacent and having his hot streak that he thought it was just going to fall into his lap? And I don't know that. But why are you firing the coach when you're winning and you're 5th ranked in the playoffs?
And it's funny too, because you could kind of like, even before this firing, you can still kind of see the writing on the wall with him, because it's just something seeming off with that team. Like, so it's just one of those situations. Like, all right, man, it's kind of weird to do it right now, but it is something that's got to be done. We don't, because what if you run yourself into a situation like, I'm pretty sure their odds are slim to none. We run it. Oh man, we make the Western Conference Finals. We even make the finals. We don't even win it, but we just make it. Now we feel like, hey, we can just run it back. We add us a couple pieces. We tweak up some things. Like, we keep the coach. Now he went from the seat hot. Now that seat is just like, we fanted it for you. We got it nice and cool for you, coach. Like, so yeah, I think it's just one of those situations where they just had to be like, you know what, just cut the snake off at the head, and hey, we'll find a coach in the off season. So
and then you're looking at the bottom of the barrel.
Worst come to worst in that situation, I think they would have just pulled the Raptors. See ya. We appreciate what you did, but see ya.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. That's fair too. And another coach that I'm keeping my eyes on, and the team, obviously, because they're going to be on their third coach if they fire. They're on their third coach in 3 years with the Phoenix Suns. They fired Monty Williams in 23. Frank Vogel is one and done. I feel like Budenholzer is on that potentially one and done. They messed up when they traded for Bradley Beal and lost all their depth and try to put him alongside Katie and Booker. So what do we feel like with the Phoenix Suns? Katie is obviously going to get moved, but he's going to be 37. So like, what team? Teams are going to have to cautious to move, trade all your pieces for a 37-year-old. D-Book.
He's not going to demand the world. Like, his demand won't be the world. It won't be, because he's 37 years old. Now, granted, is he still a threat when he's on the floor? Yeah.
Yeah.
And do I think that makes it valuable to a team that's on the cusp of getting to the playoffs, or on the cusp of that 8th seed in that play tournament? Do I think he's valuable to a team like that? Yes. But who's going to trade for him? I mean, it depends on what the ask is.
Do you think they bring in another? They go 4 in 4 years when it comes to coaching, because if it gets to a point like that, you get to a situation like that, nobody's going to want to come coach for your organization. Like, because now you're going to be like, well, I'm probably just going to be here for my 1 year, unless we do some crazy, something crazy happens with the team. Because they did start off hot, and then it just fizzled down.
I think they might. Though, I was going to say, I think at this point you move KD and not.
Yeah, and not
him. Yeah.
And Bradley Beal has a no trade clause, so he's not getting traded unless it's a situation to where like he would want to go.
So you move KD, you get some collateral back, you bump Bradley Beal up to the same spot that he was in, and just let him start alongside Book and keep the coach. And that's how everybody wins.
You do with KD what the Heat did with Shaq. They traded him for a little bit of collateral to the Lakers, and the Lakers got good again, and they got into the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah.
But he brought value. It just wasn't what the prime Shaq from the Heat and from, you know what I'm saying, from his days at the Magic.
Yeah, that was a window. Pat Riley basically had a window going in that situation. Hey, we get this one championship out of you. The next year we full of injuries. Hey, now we're gonna get rid of you, rebuild, and run it.
You got what you could out of him, and hey, congratulations, move on with your career. And then he won 2 more championships with LA. So, I think that's what you do with Durant.
Still keeping it basketball, let's segue down to the smaller ranks. We got to acknowledge the Sweet 16 Elite Eights. I would say my Alabama Crimson Tide, I guess they ran out of threes versus Duke in the Elite Eight compared to the Sweet 16, where they broke the record for most threes in a single tournament game where they had the hot hand. We saw Arkansas up by 16, drop the game to Texas Tech. And in the sequence of that game, that Texas Tech Arkansas game, trying to get a shot off was the worst thing. Calipari left the court with 1 timeout, which I didn't understand. You're a championship winning coach. You got to use your timeout. You can't take it with you. Other matchups, it was the Sweet 16. I can't remember a lot of the matchups. I know Michigan State, they beat whomever. Duke put and Arizona played to a close game. Florida ran Maryland off the floor after Maryland had that dramatic ending, and then in the Elite Eight, Texas Tech, whom could have beat Florida, did the thing Arkansas did. They choked. They were up by 9 points with like a minute and some change left, I want to say. And here we are. Now we have a Final Four, all 1 seeds. I said I wanted more from Houston. I got more from Houston. Will I think they beat Duke? We will see. They have one of the best defenses in college basketball, but I don't think that's enough because, Duke got that one guy. Even though he struggled versus Alabama, and they still won by 20. So, we do that, but, Alabama's missing shots on their behalf, so that's – and then we got Auburn, Florida on the other side, the SEC. Florida beats Auburn, so in the regular season, and I think they do it again, in my humble opinion. So, I'm thinking a Florida versus Duke championship. I'm going to just go ahead and call it now. And on the women's side, like I said, UConn got robbed of being a 1 seed. We could have potentially had 1 seeds on both sides, men and women, but they're a 2 seed. And I'm going to go ahead and say, if UConn is not playing South Carolina, I'm going to call UConn versus South Carolina in the final, in the championship, if they're not playing each other in the Final Four.
Well, let me talk about
that's what I got.
I want to talk about the men's thing for the men's tournament for a second.
Okay.
First off, Alabama put on one of the best scoring performances I have ever seen in the Sweet 16 with 113 points. And I thought that was impressive. But then when they play Duke, they can't get 53. They couldn't throw a rock in the ocean.
Couldn't throw a rock in the ocean, man.
And that was very disappointing. As far as the way I see it is Houston is just dominant. A dominant defensive team. I mean, they are shut teams down. And defense wins championships. I think Houston is good enough to get into the championship game. And I want to say I don't see Duke getting into it, but I think Duke's in, and I'd have to say Auburn. I don't think Florida has enough juice to hold Auburn. Auburn is playing well.
Yeah,
but
I was
to touch on that, yeah, I mean Auburn is just.
Yeah, I mean they like that.
My final.
They are dangerous.
Overall, my championship prediction is for it to be between Auburn and Duke, and I got Auburn winning it all.
I got Auburn beat Duke because Auburn can shut down Cooper Flag. Yeah. They can. They really can. Now, with that being said, nothing against Duke. I think Duke's playing fantastic basketball, but I also want to touch on this. We've seen some historic stuff in college basketball before, but I want to put this into the note. This is the first time in over 20 years that all number 1 seeds have made it to the Final Four. That's number 1.
Good thing or number 2. Good thing or a bad thing?
So I personally, I think money-wise, it's good right now because it'll make for exciting matchups, but it takes away those guys that like to see the underdog. So I think, and I have a touch on that one before we end this segment. I want to touch a little bit on that as well. But the other side of this that I wanted to really touch on is another thing of history that we're talking about. Throughout every round of the NCAA, keep this in mind. The NCAA basketball used to be dominated by the ACC. There is a new division in town that is king and can claim themselves king because through every round, at least 50% of the teams still remaining were in the SEC. And that's going to remain. That remains the same, and that will remain true to the championship game because it's an SEC showdown between Auburn and Florida. So one of those has to advance.
Yes.
And I think we're seeing a new concept. Now, when Dre, to your question, what you asked, I think that if college basketball wanted to do it right and beat the NIL, they could do 2 things. One of them is shorten the tournament down from the round of 68 down to a Sweet 16, and that's when the tournament starts. Or you separate it to the mid-majors and your majors, and then the winners of those tournaments play each other for a national championship.
So I can watch St. Bonaventure get crushed by Duke or Auburn every year. No, but I get what you're saying, though. It's a good assessment though. It's a good. That's why I was more on the once you get past that first weekend, like I said, that little break you get because the Sweet 16 pick back up on the following weekend, like usually on that Thursday. You reseed the teams during that off period after the last the day after the last second round games that Monday. This is where you're gonna be now.
And I think that's brilliant.
Started as a 2 seed. You might go here depending on how you look. Depending on how they want to vote you. You might be a 5 seed and get bumped all the way up to number 1 depending on how you look. You might be a 12 seed and get knocked to one of the top, bumped up to one of the top 4 seeds. So yeah.
I just think the NCAA really needs to look at their options, and I think that's a very great option too. I think that option is very viable and very great, and would make it more exciting as well. Now, are we going to see some exciting matchups? I mean, you have the top 4 teams. They're all number 1. They're the top 4 teams in the nation. But what made the tournament lackluster for me? It was very predictable.
Yeah, and you touched on this earlier, so I'm gonna say it again. Is this just all NIL? Is this all just what the NIL has produced and what it can do, and what that influence of NIL does? We talked about how there's not very many upsets before we started recording, and I personally viewed it as not a bad thing. I thought that we got the best games possible, even if they were predictable, even if all the higher seeds won, even if there was really only like I think 2 upsets, and one of them I don't really consider an upset. But with that being said, the NIL influence eventually on the football, basketball, on every facet of the NIL, eventually there's going to be a cap, there's going to be some type of fixation of set of law.
Because we 4 years in now, so it's just like at a certain point, it's inevitable. Yeah, we going to 4 years in.
So with that,
they're supposed to have a ruling soon.
So with that being said, how do you? Is it better for even basketball to have a salary cap? Will it even the playing field again? Will we go back to a tournament where around the 64 is okay? Are we ready to shrink it back down? What does the NIL do to the future of this tournament? So, and like I said, I think Auburn is a phenomenal team as far as this year. I've thought that since game 1. I think that all the way up to in a couple days events. I think even if they are upset this weekend, it's not a bad thing. We'll have a different prediction for the national championship, but it just changes the landscape. So I just wanted to know your thoughts on the NIL influence.
So I personally I like what you're saying, and I think I agree with you to a degree. I think there were some good games that happened throughout the tournament, and there were some exciting games. But I think because it was predictable, you did lose those people that were like, wow, I would really like
for.
I really like to see, because if Auburn wins it 5-6 years in a row, who's going to take down Auburn? And then all of a sudden, this little McNeese State or the Louisiana State Technological College comes in and puts a team together, and they are able to take down the big dog. Like to me, there's a little bit of that excitement to it too. But I think to Anthony's point, what Anthony was saying, I think we have to wait on what the ruling happens when they decide what they want to do with the NIL on how they want to do the revenue share.
Go ahead, finish. Go ahead, finish.
I was going to say, I do think that's going to put an impact. And when you do have a revenue share and you determine on who's going where, you can almost get more of a parity into it.
Yeah, I got you. I will say, like, as far as NIL, I think now looking at it, I think NIL, and this is one of those hot take, let me say this moments, I think NIL is more beneficial towards college basketball players and the college football players because you have guys, you're going to have 3 or 4 year players in college football, they can turn themselves into a top 10 pick. They're going to get their money, but if you have 3 or 4 year players in college basketball, what are the chances of them going to the league? And it's already, like we talked about the previous episode, it's only 60 spots on an NBA draft night. So it's just like you get it, get your chance to get your money. But in college football, I'm all about people getting their money. But per se, like a better words, you can take your discount on the front end, especially if you about to be top 5, and then you run into that, you play out your rookie contract and you ball out. Now you about to run into that upper echelon of getting getting them 9-figure deals. So I will say that college basketball is more beneficial for NIL for players that know they're not going to the league, but hey, I'm just gonna maximize, get my money. You know, hopefully got some people around me that invest the money, and then when I leave, I got more than what I first put in my pocket.
I agree with you because A, you have a better opportunity to get drafted into the NFL than you do the NBA.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have 211 picks as opposed to 60. Number one. Number two, draft picks, or let me rephrase that. The NIL, the money you get paid in like your senior year at college for Duke, to play at Duke, like Drake May, right? If he got paid $700,000 there, but his senior year he played lights out and he won a Heisman, that's going to transfer over into a high draft pick where he's going to get paid.
Now you're going to go from being number 3 to number 1, and that's a difference in money too. Like I know the difference between 1 and 2, I want to say is at least like $5 or $6 million. So yeah,
as opposed to in the NBA where you're paying this guy $1 million for the season. And in reality, if he does get drafted in the NBA, he's getting drafted at a salary of $250,000 for the year because he was great in college and he got paid that $1 million. But in the NBA, he's just another dude riding the bench in the G League.
Yeah.
Speaking
of draft, I guess we can go to the NFL with the Tennessee Titans talking about if they want to come, we want somebody to come off that number 1 pick. They basically want a boatload, but I just want to know like who's desperate enough or who's foolish enough to give them, I would say 3 swap picks and get them 2 other first round. So basically, essentially 3 first round picks. You swap your pick and you give them 2. You basically do maybe a player, but.
So I want to hop on this one first because I did some very good research on this one. The Titans, yes, they do want a king's ransom or the boatload for a number 1 pick. Hey, that's very, very warranted. This is at any rate, at any point in time, the number 1 pick is always going to be considered the most important pick of any draft. But what I will say is since 1967, only 13 times has the number 1 pick been traded for. Most notably in 2023 when the Bears did it and they got a haul that we're still kind of seeing work out over time. All right. We go backwards a little bit more. 2016, there was a Titan team that traded away their first round pick that year. That first round pick turned into Jared Goff for the Rams. And I still feel like now, 9 years later, after 2016, do we know anybody that got drafted from all that haul? Anybody that stayed from all that haul? Anything that the Titans got out of that trade?
I know they did. They got Derrick Henry in the 2nd round in that same draft. That's about they drafted AJ Brown.
And I don't feel like that's a direct correlation to trading the number 1
It's
pick.
not. It's not. But it's just that's the only thing I know they did, honestly.
Other than the 2 most recent ones in 2023 and 2016, the 2 that I researched myself and I saw to be the most successful number 1 trades that were made for and turned out to be okay, that was right, was the Falcons trading up in 2001 to get Michael Vick, which ideal. I think if this was not a quarterback heavy as far as ceiling when it comes to a draft, Travis Hunter there would be calls being made right now for that unicorn that is Travis Hunter.
He's consensus number 1. He's
consensus number 1. Trades are being made to get somebody that can play both sides of the ball.
And maybe Abdul Carter. It might be a team that be like, I want Abdul Carter number 1. But yeah.
The only other number 1 pick trade that I saw that worked out was before that, 1997 and Walter Pace. I mean, I'm sorry, not Walter Pace, Orlando Pace. I don't think there's an argument. Yes. I don't think there's an argument that those 2 picks, when traded for properly, we don't remember anything else about any of those trades. The only thing we remember about the 2023 trade is that the Bears got DJ Moore.
All right, so
I think they're playing the long game, and I think they're playing the long game. They probably knew the Panthers was going to be terrible, and like they knew when Caleb Williams was coming out,
he was going to be available.
One of those. It's checkmate, yeah. So you just checkmate.
So I think there's 2 things going on, possible things going on when we talk about what the Titans are asking for. number one, you're either bluffing. You're bluffing to see who's going to take the bait, to see what kind of draft compensation you can get, and to see who's desperate. Because maybe you can get a really good player out of it, or somebody to fill that void, or a veteran quarterback that can come in that's not Will Levis. You have that, right? The other thing is I think they're sitting there and they're determined to get the number one, and they're determined to take Cam Ward to take that quarterback spot, and they don't want anybody to trade, so they made that asking price too high so they don't get phone calls. They get everybody else to think. I think it's one of those two things. Because I don't think there's any team. First off, the Cleveland Browns don't have enough space or compensation to really.
They don't.
Trade up.
The Titans are not taking Deshaun Watson's contract on. Hell no.
Yeah.
Hell no.
Exactly. They're not doing that again. Well, but then again, it's the Browns. Not to knock on the Brownies.
Yeah.
But let's just face it, they haven't had a history of making great contract moves.
They have it.
But I think it's a bluff. I think it's a complete bluff from the Titans to see who would really pay that. And if there's if the Dolphins come up and go, hey, we'll give you Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, and a number one pick for your number one pick. And it's just like,
just throw Tua to the Wolves, huh? Like, that's crazy.
I think at best, I'm unrealistic when it comes to trades because I know what I would and wouldn't do in very many trades if I was an NFL owner. But I think at best, if there is a number one pick, I could see 2 ones and an aging superstar. But that's the only way. So to your point, Raphael, about the Dolphins, I could see a Jalen Ramsey and 2 first-round picks. Let me get that number one pick. Let me go get Travis Hunter. Let me go solve the same. I don't have to go solve an issue, but let's go address it. And I'm just using that for an example, but that's the best trade that I think they'll get out of this.
Right, but and to that point, what I'm saying is I think they're testing to see how desperate teams are to get that number one pick. They're throwing that high bounty up there to see if anybody's willing to do a trade like that. Or, hey, we'll give you Jalen Ramsey and fix your defense up, and we'll give you 2 number ones for this year, next year, and see what they do. And I think they're just trying to gauge how desperate teams are. Now, that might benefit them now, and they might just be trying to toy with them. And then come draft day, they're like, nobody wanted to trade. And if we really want to trade out of it because we feel good about Will Levis, then maybe we'll trade down and ask for a number 2 pick. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think they're just trying to gauge the market right now to see how desperate teams are. That's my opinion.
And I think even with that, to the point, you just made an excellent point. Like having the number one pick is a gift and a curse almost.
Yeah.
Because you get the number one pick and it's like, all right, cool. If I don't get a move made on me because everybody out there knows I want more than just nothing, if I don't get a move made on me that makes sense for me, my team, my franchise, my organization, and then it turns into, okay, it's a gambling game once you get to the draft and that clock start because the phones they heat right back up. They pick up even more when they know that you're on the clock, and you got to make that choice within a few minutes.
Yeah, you can't think.
And so to your point, it's a curse from that aspect. You got the best value of a pick that anybody would ask for, but when it comes to having that pick, what to do with that pick, getting offers that you don't really know if it's going the Titans, the Titans a few years ago, the Bears now, or I'm sorry, the Panthers and the Bears on both sides, like not knowing if these trades are gonna work out makes it more of a curse. You trade down to 5 thinking that one of your players that you still are looking at is gonna be there, and they're gone. So it's a curse, It's almost like you may as well just stay at the pick and just pick who you absolutely already have circled in.
BPA, best player available.
Anthony, so here's a question because this will transition into our next talk about the NFL.
Okay.
Would the San Francisco 49ers be willing to get rid of Brock Purdy and Brandon Ayuk and their number one spot, trade them to Tennessee for that number one, and take a take a quarterback there because they do have a solid core with Pearsall and their other wide receivers. Get another quarterback at a number one pick, and then Tennessee gets the quarterback they want, and they could restructure a deal with Purdy.
See, that's the thing. The 49ers might have PTSD. They traded up to get Trey Lance. I don't think they want to take that chance again. This was not too long ago.
Yeah.
So I think and you already know what you got in Brock Purdy. At best, like, we still might be in a situation where we might not, win as much games as we have, but we won't be number one terrible because we might be in a situation where we might be looking at, and don't tell us what we're looking to do. You don't want to do this again because that backfired. That Trey Lance thing backfired on them.
But the Niners aren't in a hurry to do a deal with Brock Purdy, so
they're not.
Would it be intriguing? Would it be intriguing for the Tennessee Titans? Because it all depends on how they view Brock Purdy.
But what are you gonna put around them? Oh, well, you did say Ayuk. You did say Ayuk. Yeah, you did say Ayuk.
Right, and you trade them away to the Titans. Does that make it a little more interesting? Now, I get it that the 49ers may have some PTSD on it. And I don't think they would do that trade.
Yeah. And now you coming off of ACL, I don't think, they might even, hey, let us get Pearsall. I'll just take, let us get Pearsall versus Ayuk because he's not coming off an injury. Yeah.
I'm not saying that's even in the talks. I'm just saying if that were available, because the Niners aren't in a rush to get Brock Purdy done this year right now.
They're not. No. Speaking of Brock Purdy, came out and basically said the team was fatigued. So let's take it back all the way back to 2020. Coming off a Super Bowl loss, they go into that season. Joey Bosa goes down. They basically had a bunch of injuries. I think Richard Sherman went down. So, and then we fast forward to 2024, coming off another Super Bowl loss against said team, Kansas City Chiefs. Chris McCaffrey with this weird Achilles injury that nobody really heard of, and then it was like, oh, he'll be ready. I think by week 1, week 2, or whatever. Wasn't available. Came back. Was still kind of banged up. I forgot who else went down. I know Trent Williams went down. Basically, the guys were beat up. Brock Purdy said the guys were kind of tired. You got a little older guys. Oh, you also had Dre Greenlaw, I forgot to mention, who also went down in the Super Bowl, came back later in the season, but now he's no longer on the team. So, different. So, but he said the guys were tired. So, it's just like I told you when we talked, it's like, it's certain things that you don't want to say in the midst of a contract negotiation because it's almost like what you can say can be used against you in the court of law. This is one of those things like, we just didn't get the job done. We'll try to be better this year. You don't want to just put it out there. Guys were kind of tired. It's like we were just hurt, but you don't want to kind of put that type of information out there, especially like when you're trying to get your money.
You don't air family dirty laundry to the public. Number one, you don't air dirty laundry to the public. That's number one. Number two, didn't we learn this lesson earlier in the season with Anthony Richardson when he tapped out?
Yeah.
When you show that, what are you telling your team as a leader? Like you're
not
my leader's
gonna
working. Throw me under the
you're
bus.
Not in shape.
I'm not here for y'all. I'm not here with y'all. And I think I know it's from a different tone that Purdy was talking about, and I know that he's talking about something that the casual fan knows. We hear the commentators tell us this. The Celtics just got done having a deep playoff run. They sent several players, their star players, to the Olympics, and they played another month and a half of basketball. They look tired right now. We know that.
And now they're in the midst of a 9-game win streak.
But the commentators telling us is one thing. That's okay. The commentators are telling us something that we, the casual fans, we don't think about when we're watching them. We know in the back of our heads because we go to work every day. We are tired of going to work every day. But we get up and go perform just as we expect them to go out and perform. You are in the midst of a contract negotiation, like Anthony said. Some things are better left unsaid. That was good locker room talk. Hey, man, I don't know about you, man. I'm freaking tired. I don't even feel like lifting today. I don't feel like doing film today. I know we got to. We just been doing it so much lately. I'm tired. Never directly.
And that's to what you guys were saying, like the commentators. right? The commentators are saying what we all believe. They're not. What Brock Purdy did is he confirmed our belief.
Yeah.
And then when you confirm it, you're like, wow, you guys really, like, maybe you don't have that championship mentality that we're looking for in a leader.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
and Dre, you put it into the perfect context of like work. If all three of us work together, we can complain to each other that we're tired. Right? God, I'm tired. God, I'm tired. God, I'm tired. But when your supervisor comes around, that tiredness goes away.
You don't say that in front of your supervisor ever.
Right. Right. So to that context, that absolutely not. So staying with the NFL as well, the owners meeting happened this week. And new rule changes were voted upon.
My favorite play.
Few rule changes were voted upon, and some didn't make the cut, and some are still up for debate in May. So let's get into it. The brotherly shove.
All for it. All
Rugby.
for it. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. If they can do a quarterback sneak, if they can do an all-out blitz, if they can do anything that is dangerous and get away with it, there is no way that you're telling me that you're not going to be able to use a play where you're the most strategic play I've ever seen in football, other than the quarterback sneak. You're using your leverage, your strength, your size. You're not doing anything sudden or dangerous.
Low man wins.
I just firmly believe, because I agree with you. I think we should not touch this play. Are the Eagles great at it? Yes, but other teams have adopted it as well. So you're dismantling the other teams. The best way to fix the tush push, learn how to stop it.
Yeah.
How do you stop it? Draft that 6'4", 450-pound kid out of Florida.
Plug the hole up.
That play actually lost the Bills the championship game before the play that actually lost them the game because they tried to run it, and you can't, as a quarterback that's already tall, you can't stand up high and try to get a first down like that. You got to be low to the ground. That's why it works with Philly. Jalen Hurts, I mean, he's like 6'2", but he's not 6'5", so he's short, like a little stocky in stature, and he just, you know.
Listen, you put that kid out of Florida that bench pressed 225 35 times.
Yeah, oh yeah.
And he's 450 pounds. Just have him lay down. All you got to do is have him lay down.
Just a big spot in the field.
He'll stop him. He's gonna trip over.
Yeah.
You know, it's you just gotta draft well, and you gotta play that play to stop it. And when it comes to, well, we feel like there's a lot of injuries that happen with tush push. Anybody who's watched an NFL game, and even my 11-year-old can tell you this, there's an inherent danger when you put on the helmet. Because every play, you have that risk. It's an inherent danger when you play. That's why you get paid the money. That's why you get the best medical facilities. It's inherently dangerous. So to that point, I say leave that alone. Now,
one thing I will say, I think it was another one too. They were talking about moving the touchbacks to the 35. I'm gonna rip my hair out. I'm a traditionalist. I miss when every kick that went to the end zone just started at the 20. At this point, we might as well just let them start at midfield. Hey, offense, y'all get half the field to make some plays.
Go score.
Jesus.
I'm actually all for moving it to the 35.
Please
I'll tell you why.
Please enlighten me. I gotta hear this.
I'll tell you why. Because if you're penalizing the team that's kicking off by essentially giving an automatic first down, if it's kicked in the touchback, that increases the chance of the receiving team for scoring. Now, there's strategy that comes involved. If you have a really good defense and you're playing a team that does not have a good offense, I don't mind kicking the touchback and giving it to you on the 35 because I'm going to stop you before you get to the 50. Right? But if it's a evenly matched team, or they have a much better offense, but not a good special teams, I'm going to risk it and try to stop you and pin you down at the 10.
Yeah.
So I think you're increasing the return rate and making the game more exciting that way. I think you're forcing those teams that have more parity in the offense and defense to make a strategical decision. Do you want to give up that automatic first down? Because that 10 yards means a lot, especially when it's the first play of the game.
I still think too that I think it's a direct correlation with the new kickoff rules. You know, I think just the way that the new kickoffs are designed, they're really aren't really a lot of guys kicking it into the end zone anymore. So
no.
to make it almost like a bad thing to kick in the end zone makes it what they're trying to do. And I'm glad you talked on it, Raphael, because you kind of you enlightened me. What they are trying to do is they have brought in a whole new rule for kickoffs that for basically we are still spitting on. We are spitting at it like we still hate it. We don't hate it as much because we really don't have a choice,
I got
but
used to seeing
but
it.
we hate it. So what they're trying to do is implement another level, another stage to this kickoff game that makes it like, okay, yeah, they're making sure that there's some strategy in here. They're making sure that they kick inside that zone. They're making sure that we get fluid returns. They're making sure that if they're just about going to have the same amount of space and opportunity to get to the 35, if they kick it out the end zone, put them to the 35 because where do they line up? Where do the offense and defense line up? Is it not like the 45 and the 35 anyway as an offense and defense? So what they're saying is if you kick it past us, we're gonna start from right here, where we were already gonna start blocking. So I kind of see it. I still like the traditional 20, 25, giving the offense, go find a rhythm. Go put some plays together.
You don't need no aid.
Now, boys, I will say this: like the game evolves, and we just have, as fans, we have to learn how to evolve with
Gotta
it.
catch
Right?
Yeah.
And it's hard because I agree with you. When I saw the kickoff for the first time last year, I was like, "What am I watching? This is weird. It's not used to me." As I started watching more and more, and it started being played more and more, I mean, Turpin for the Cowboys had a fantastic week,
Washington.
and with no penalties, and it was just amazing to watch.
He made
And if
one,
we can get
one
more,
cut.
if we can get more of that, yeah, you're going to increase scoring.
They want to
You're going to increase
increase
fans,
increase.
and then you're going to not get rid of the kicker, which is a vital part of the game. So I personally, I do like the evolution of it. It started to grow on me. I'm really appreciative of that fact that we just, as fans, we have to learn to evolve with it. And I think starting at the 35 is a really good way to make it more exciting. Some of the other rules that came down, just to quickly touch on them, the Hawkeye technology now being used and the chain gang being secondary. I like that because Anthony brought it up with the tush push. I personally thought the Bills got the first down in that game, and the refs kind of helped a certain team in red and white.
I will say, well, I'll let you finish, but I will say they were kind of in a tough spot because it was a lose either way it went for them. But we can poke fun at the Chiefs. Yeah, but we can poke fun at the Chiefs with having the refs on the payroll. I get it. I get it.
I do like having the Hawkeye technology. I think that'll work out.
Yeah.
And one of the other ones that I do like is having the instant replay be able to review calls that were bad, not missed calls, because they can't throw a flag, they can't put a flag down, but they could pick up a flag on a call that they thought, they saw it, and then turns out it wasn't. So I do like that, and that's pretty much what I got. I know we got to sign off here in a little bit, but
no, we got the one last one. We covered all every sport, and there we named the commissioners, but except for hockey. But
let's cover these guys.
So we're gonna go. I'm gonna start with the NBA. I got the names. We went from David Stern. Now we're at Adam Silver. This is basically from me and Dre's timeline. We're the same age. I know you're a little bit older, and some of this fits into the timeline where you probably started watching sports because some of these guys took over. Like David Stern took over in '84 and stopped in 2014. Now we got Adam Silver. Then we go to NFL. We got Paul Tagliabue to Roger Goodell. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Paul Tagliabue took over in like '89 or '90 all the way to '06 when Roger Goodell took over. Now in MLB, we got Bud Selig to Rob Manfred. And then in the NHL, we got Gary Bettman and Gary Bettman. He's the longest tenured out of the current commissioners because he started in '93 and he still has his job as the NHL's commissioner. So he's the longest tenured. But my question is, out of all four major North American sport leagues, who do you guys feel is the best commissioner for their respective sport? Because I'm pretty sure if we go to the core of the fans, like I'm a core NFL fan, I can tell you everything bad about Roger Goodell and probably can't tell you nothing good he's done. As far as Adam Silver, yeah, he kind of killed everything with the player empowerment. Now we got entitled NBA players, I guess you could say, per se. MLB, not really too big on MLB. I'm going to get more heavily invested into it, but every time somebody brings up Rob Manfred's name, the fans just, they cringe. And Gary Bettman, obviously, I definitely don't know nothing about hockey, but I haven't heard any too bad things about him. So, like, who do you guys feel is the best commissioner in totality of all the sports in North America?
First off, I want to
The
say,
major sports.
I want to say, rest in peace, David Stern. Go ahead. Anybody else who wants the floor first?
Agreed. Rest in peace, David Stern. Condolences to the family.
Yeah, he kind of had a tight hold on the NBA, and it was more business approach. Now it's just like NBA now is like a side hobby.
So
compared to
I will say this: when we talk about commissioners, we have to take into account all the goods and bads that they do. And I'm with you, Anthony. I can tell you a lot of things that Roger Goodell has done that has not been great for the game. But there are some things that he has done that have benefited the NFL in general. And I'll point those out, and I'll give you my my final take on it. Adam Silver, for me, he's been a great businessman as far as global expansion for the NBA, creating a global community and expanding the game that way. I do think that he does have giving a little bit of power to the players has been beneficial for the players, and he does have a good leadership mindset. I think he's very good at business, especially with his business partners and marketing. However, on the downside of it, you have fans that have declined to watch. You have a decrease in viewership, and you have players that are entitled.
low management.
Roger Goodell, he has issues with disciplinary actions, especially with the criminal offenses, and he keeps these guys in the league. Look at Deshaun Watson, right? And that's just one of the key points. In Ray Rice, he didn't suspend him right away.
He wasn't going to do anything until he faced public backlash with the Ray Rice. Yes.
Exactly. So you look at that, and that's some of the bad stuff he's done. But now let's look at some of the good stuff he's done. He has increased the global market. He's moved the sport of the NFL to an international market where now you're getting more eyes on the game. In Major League Baseball, Manfred has took a game that was popular in America's pastime, and it is now practically unwatchable for a lot of young fans because they just can't get to the game, and it's slow.
Yeah.
Now he has made some decent changes though, and I'll give him credit. He's made some decent changes in the pitch clock. He's made some decent changes in the rule changes and instant replay, and he sped the game up a little bit. However, I think that's still to be determined. But I think you need a fresh eye in there. When it comes down to Gary Bettman in the NHL, I think he's done a fantastic job in a lot of things. He's taken a global sport that was already global, brought it to the United States, and you have a lot of people watching the United States with expansions. You got more viewership, and the things that he's done to revamp the All-Star game, like the Four Nations face-off, the World Cup, and now you're letting the NHL players play in the Olympics. I think that is a huge benefit to the NHL. His downside is he's also been faced with a lot of lockouts from the players' organizations. But when you look at it that way, he just wants the best product. For me, I think all these professional sports leagues are a what have you done for me lately? And with what we saw in the NHL Four Nations face-off that happened a couple months ago, I think the NHL is on the right track with Adam Silver coming in a very close second. And I think, I still think there's room for improvement for Roger Goodell, but and I think he's doing just fine as far as maintaining the status quo and business wise, he's doing great. But he needs to get better on his disciplinary stuff. And Manfred
fire Goodell.
Yeah.
Manfred is just Manfred inning alone, getting carried by Shohei and the Dodgers. So, but so I guess we could say in totality, it seems like Gary Bettman is because, like I said, he has the tenure. It's been 32 years. So I don't know if anybody's publicly called for his job, maybe during the lockout.
So are we still just speaking on like current, or is this just?
Yeah, we speaking on current, not all the time. We speaking on current. Because that's why I said I named the previous names, the transition, because like who we grew up seeing.
Yeah,
versus,
I was about to say, I don't really have a true answer. I think Rob Manfred's doing a great job. He's taking baseball to a global level. That's something that you wish and you die for as a fan. You're seeing a great bit of like new talent every bunch of so many years. I think they're doing a phenomenal job with the draft. I think they're doing a phenomenal job with development. There's so many opportunities out there for baseball players from
from
levels that we see on paper, levels that we see locally, levels that we see on TV. I even see sometimes that there are single A games that are played on ESPN's family network. So you can still
The
catch
Savannah
some guys.
Bananas.
You can see some guys that are developing at very, very low levels if you just truly decided to watch
Yeah.
somebody from the draft all the way up. Um, I
I
feel
will say
like,
their farm system is better
yeah,
than
I feel like Roger is just a spoke on the wheel. I feel like Roger is strictly about the business of the game. I feel like
Shield, the Shield, the Shield.
he does more than everything that's necessary to push football to the forefront, no matter what. I don't know if that makes him a good commissioner. Like Raphael said, you basically letting pretty much anybody in the league. Is there more spots? Yes. Is there more opportunities for failure and disruption? Yes. Do I feel like that's completely on him? No. I feel like you have to put football teams in bigger markets to get bigger value. There's bigger problems. You can't control all these guys that go into the league. I don't feel like that's just all on him. I feel like his disciplinary actions could 100% be more stern. They
Yeah, gotta
should
set an example.
100% be more stern. But until we get to that,
we get to
they're
that.
more worried about adding more games than they are making sure that good, wholesome players that are supposed to be the face of their league are in the league. Every day we still read about players that get into trouble. If I had to choose one, though, I hate to say it. I don't even really hate to say it. Adam Silver is my favorite right now. His expansion of the game, his progression of the game, the way he held God, give me his name. Somebody give me his name.
Donald
The
Sterling.
way that he held Sterling's feet to the
And
fight,
he just first, that's when he first got that job too. So
the
yeah,
way
I commend him
that
for that.
the way that in 2020 in the bubble he stood with his players and he understood and he heard his players out. Those are things that yes we and I say this kind of in a jokingly way. Yes, that the NBA players are much more entitled. Yes, they are much more empowered, but they seem so much happier. They seem so much freer. They have expanded they have catapulted themselves into a new stratosphere of marketing with podcasts and YouTube channels and streaming and things. And it's happening in all genres of sport. I feel like there's different restrictions for all of them. But when I look at the direction that the NBA is headed in, I'm happy with it. I'm okay with it.
I will add on to you that I think Manfred has done a good job with the global marketing.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think
yeah.
he really is making the right steps to improve the game for younger audiences. It's just not at the rate that younger audiences really want to see.
Compared to like a NFL or NBA, yeah, he's not moving at the pace of those because those are the two most popular in the US at least, and even
And I
globally, especially NBA because the
and,
China
and,
market.
and I
Yeah,
want to double down on this as to why I'm saying this, despite what flaws the NBA might have. I want to double down on why I'm saying that I believe that Adam Silver is my choice. Is that's because 2 months after his hiring day, he was faced with the biggest scandal that you could ask for from within your own league. One of your
One of
franchise faces, owners, buyers, large
billionaire.
sum of money. You have to punish him. You have to confront this issue head on. You have to go and make a choice. Do a lifetime ban in the first 2 months shows me that you stand with your players. That is the mantra that you have stuck on you going forward for the rest of his days. He
And
stuck
the
with
worst
them.
punishment, go ahead. And the worst punishment ever for a billionaire is being forced to sell your team for billions to still end up being a billionaire. And with that note, I think we got everything wrapped up. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, share, subscribe, leave comments. We would love to know your feedback. We will answer all comments as well. Until next time, We'll be back with another episode of Let Me Say This. Peace.